Hello everybody, welcome to Tea Time with Jesse, a very special episode with John Flower at a very special place. John, where are we?
We are at the China Folk House, 中国民居, which is a Yunnan farmhouse rebuilt here in beautiful Harpers Ferry, West Virginia.
Yeah, so this, you may believe that we're actually in China right now, and we just took a tour of this place, and I could tell for everything from the smell to just the architecture is absolutely fascinating. John and his team have moved this house from Yunnan, which is unbelievable, and it makes it a perfect place to be able to have some tea. We're about to learn how you did that and hear the story. I'm very excited to be able to share with everybody. But before we start, we gotta have some Yunnan tea.
Let's do it.
That's how we do it. So I'm gonna have some raw pu'er. This is me and my friend Dui Dui's raw pu'er. Dui Dui is in the picture there. By the way, we have a little live audience here. But give us a little,
give yourselves a
little. We actually have like people watching the show, other people who are here at the Folk House to hear the story. We're gonna take some of this raw pu'er from my friend Dui Dui. Yunnan tea, known for its pu'er. We're gonna have a red tea in the second half. And this is just gonna be the perfect tea to be able to match hearing a story about your trips to Yunnan and how you managed to move this entire house all the way around the world. When you set out to do it, did you have any idea the enormity of what you were getting yourself into by trying to move a house from Yunnan to West Virginia?
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I mean, I had seen houses moved before. I used to work here in Virginia. I was a stonemason. I would take log cabins down and move them to other places. So I knew it could be done, but yeah, many stories, Jesse. Many stories.
Many stories for sure. So let's start at the beginning, I suppose. Who are you? Give everybody a little bit of an introduction, and sort of how did you find yourself in China in the first place?
Well, I'm a historian, and my wife Pam Leonard is an anthropologist, and we did work for a long time in Sichuan province. We went to Sichuan beginning in '91. And lived in the countryside there, in a village called Shakou, west of Chengdu. And so when we were there, we did a lot with houses, because houses are kind of texts of everyday life, right? And so that was part of our research. And then after I moved, I used to teach at UNC Charlotte, and then we moved to Washington, D.C. I took the job as Director of Chinese Studies at Sidwell Friends School, which is a Quaker school that has a long, storied past of engagement with China. So I took that job as Director of Chinese Studies, and then we started to take students to China, first to Sichuan and then to Yunnan.
High school students?
High school students, yeah. High school students, and a lot of them taking Chinese language, and great kids.
What's it like leading high schoolers around Yunnan?
Oh, it's great.
Is it good?
Oh, it's great. You know, high school kids have a lot of intellectual maturity, but they're still fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You get too far into academia, you lose the fun.
Yeah, they definitely keep it fun.
Well, I think high schoolers are curious in a way that, you need that curiosity. The people who are curious in China, I feel, do better. They find the fun stuff, they find the thing that makes them want to stay and keep on fighting through the difficulty of learning the language.
Yeah, and they roll with the punches because they don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
So that was fun, and we started working with the Lindens, Brian and Jeannie Linden, and we started to take students to Xizhou, beautiful Guzheng, old town, and we had the students study houses and study temples, and that developed into a semester-long program, which is fantastic, and they apprentice with craftsmen.
Oh, wow.
So silversmiths, wood carving, felting, tie-dye, all that's great stuff from Yunnan, what they still do.
Cheers.
Oh.
Here's a sheng pu'er. It's got a little astringency, a little sweetness.
A little sweetness at the end, yeah.
Just good Yunnan. Brings me back to Yunnan. Every time I get that smell, this is the smell that I'm like, oh yeah. In Yunnan. So very spiritually, kind of now with the house and the woods around.
You get your sense around your sights, sounds, and smells.
Yeah, it's great. So you're taking the kids around, they would apprentice, and how did you find people that would take American high school students as students to teach them traditional crafts?
Well, we were there for 4 months. So the idea is we went to one community, we went back year after year, And so they got to know us, they got to trust us, and we had great local people. Yang Wendo, our local coordinator, he is a ethnic Bai person from Dali, and he was fantastic. He set it all up, basically. But the community knew us because we were there for such a long time. And then, I had them there for 4 months, so a part of that, we would go up onto the plateau. We would go up to Shangri-La, go through Lijiang, Tiger Leaping Gorge. You've done that road.
Yeah, so the coolest thing about Yunnan is one of my favorite places in the world. And part of the reason is because it's at this really interesting geographical place where if you go to Kunming, the main capital city, if you head south of there, you get to tea trees, elephants, like real tropical Southeast Asia. And if you go north and west, you get into these amazing mountains and up into the Tibetan Plateau. And in both of these areas, both the south and the north, you wind up in all these places where it's not all ethnic Han people.
Right.
And so there's a lot of intermixing of cultures, and Yunnan was the borderland of the dynasties.
Right.
And so you would go up onto the plateau with the students, and where did you go?
So we went northwest Yunnan. We would go through Lijiang, Zhenchuan, Lijiang, and then up to Shangri-La, Deqin, and we would sort of follow the Jinsha River up, and then we would cross over Meili Xueshan, the beautiful glaciers.
I want to go there.
Fabulously beautiful. And then you get into the Lansangjiang, the Mekong River. So we would go up the Jinsha and down the Mekong, and stopping along the way. Tremendous diversity, ethnic diversity, ecological diversity, amazing. So in the course of that, we went to the town of Sizhong, and they're building a dam there on the Mekong. And about 30 houses were going to be inundated, so we went down below the inundation line
So
that
when
they
they
marked.
flood it was like a valley?
Yeah.
So they would flood the valley for the dam, and then certain houses were below the inundation line.
Right. And I mean, you find that all over Western China. So along the inundation zone, we walked past that gate right there, and Mr. Zhang Jianhua opened the gate and saw a group of us, obviously from somewhere else, invited us in for tea,
You
just
could
like
tell
we're
you
doing.
weren't like local.
Yeah, he
Sidwell
could pretty much
roots.
figure it out.
Didn't know
But his
where you were
instinct
from.
was, oh, you're not from around here.
Yeah.
Come into my home and have tea.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
So this is.
So this is perfect. We are
this is perfect.
reenacting
We
it.
are reenacting. I guess you're Zhang Laoshi and I'm you. Then.
Well, then you would say something like, oh man,
Oh man,
太漂亮，
太漂亮这个地方，
太可惜。
太可惜了，这个地方要淹掉。
哎呀，怎么办？
哎呀，怎么办呢？
我把它带回家怎么样？
带回家怎么样？
好啊。
Yeah. So this is to reenact this. So you went in and you said like, wow, this place it's such a shame this is going to be lost, and I should take it home. Is that
I
what
just
you-
like, man, I wish I could take it home with me.
Yeah.
You know how you say it.
Yeah.
Just polite.
Yeah.
And he said, okay,
We can make that work.
yeah,
Wow.
可以。
And so what was the moment? Did you have like a moment in that conversation where it kind of switched from being like playing to like, wait a minute, like,
That was the beginning of several conversations. And we both were thinking about it. Like, how could you do it? He had to think about permits and permissions and stuff, and I had to think about, well, can we really do this? And I didn't want to just take the house. I wanted to really understand the house and its setting and its community. So I went back with the group, and we were there for 3 weeks, and not a real long time, but enough time to go around and interview people and understand the history of the place and how diverse it was. And it was only at the end of that we decided to, well, let's try taking it down.
Do it. Had you ever moved a house before? I know you said you had been around. You knew it could be done, but had you ever actually moved a house?
I moved a log cabin
Okay.
years ago,
Yeah.
40 years ago, more than 40 years ago. I moved a log cabin.
Did the people in the cabin knew you were moving it? Or was it a surprise?
Oh, they were gone by then. Let's just say it was just sitting there.
So it was a log. Tell me. So you moved this cabin. Did any of the past experience of moving that cabin kind of make you think like I can do this?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
So even though it was a more basic log cabin, you're like, well, it's more pieces, but fundamentally.
Fundamentally, it's the same thing.
Really?
It's the same thing. And the key to it is that it's not put together with nails.
Oh, okay.
It's all done with joinery.
So same with a log cabin.
Same with a log cabin.
Oh.
So once you get the roof off, and then you can just start disassembling, because that's how it went together. And it's held together by the friction of the joinery, the mortise and tenon, or the A and V notch for a log cabin. And of course, I'd seen it done in China a lot, because a lot of these mountain communities, they're they're taking farmland to forest, they're taking people off the land. And so people are disassembling the old houses and bringing them down. And you've seen it in the cities too. Where do you think all those beautiful carved windows and there's decorations that
Whether
you
it's
see?
pieces or the whole thing, people are always taking stuff apart and putting it back together.
Yep.
And I think and so when you saw it and you had this idea to move it, did you have any idea where you were going to put it? Because I assume that's also that's the other half.
Well, yeah. 车到山前必有路, right? So, as we say in Quaker idiom, a way will open. We kind of took it on faith. So I took the house down.
So you didn't know where it was going to go?
Did not know where it was going to go. I had an idea,
faith.
which is dangerous. You know what they say, if you don't think too good, don't think too much.
Yeah.
So I had an idea, which is always a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And it was, okay, from the Himalayas and the Mekong to the Blue Ridge and the Shenandoah.
Yeah.
Right? And then I had a buddy who was a real estate agent over here in Clark County, and he said, I was talking to him about, because we talked about this with our friends, and said, where should or if you can't rebuild it, just give it to me, I'll sell it for you, because he's a real estate guy.
Yeah.
And so I saw him about 5 years after that, and I said, oh, Chip, you remember how you told me that? I said, that was really the key to us doing it. You giving us confidence to take the house down. And he said, I said, what?
You didn't even remember
I said, I never said that.
This is sort
Remember
of like,
Chip?
maybe this was like, he went into some sort of like fugue state that was necessary for the way to open.
Probably it was his equivalent of saying, oh man, I wish I could just take it home with me.
Yeah. But so this is the interesting thing is like, in order to, do you think that in order to achieve anything big and unusual, there has to be that moment where like it can't be comfortable the whole way through?
Yeah. At the moment of commitment, the entire universe conspires to assist you. That is like a saying somebody gave me. I think it's Goethe or something. But I've always just felt like that really is the story of the house. At the moment of commitment, the entire universe conspires to assist you. I mean, it's really been like that.
It's really nuts. I mean, can you imagine? Because I'm thinking like, even just thinking my own house, like I'm hesitant to buy furniture because I'm like, what if it doesn't look good when it goes in?
Commit.
Maybe I just need more commitment. Maybe the problem is not enough commitment.
Well, yeah, I think it was a leap of faith, and Pam and I often think that the house had a lot to do with it. That the house kind of has its own mysterious calling, because at just the most crazy times, people have come forward and made it happen. And I feel like we're just kind of holding on and helping out. But the house is kind of making this whole rebirth thing happen. I mean, not to get too mysterious on you or anything.
Well, so let's see what it was kind of like for you to disassemble the house. Like, so when you were looking at the whole house fully assembled, you'd figure it out, okay, we're gonna move it. We don't know where yet, but we're gonna take it down. That's the first step. How do you go about like getting something like that done? Like, was it like literally let's start taking pieces apart, or did you like individually measure each piece of wood?
Yeah, so it was a team effort, and I had some of the team members literally marking every piece of wood. I had other team members who were measuring things, and Nikhil Chaudhary made a 3D model. So there's actually a virtual model of the house that he made while we were in Yunnan. So it's being virtually sort of preserved. And then every article of furniture and every household item was cataloged and photographed. And so we had a team working on all that stuff. And then after everything was marked, and we just 4 days, we hired 4 guys from Dali. And they used to build houses, but lately they've been their cottage industry has taken them down.
Interesting. Also for relocation.
Yeah.
They just
salvage. They basically were working in salvage. And Yang Wendo, who is our hero, he went and got them, and the four of them and all of us, there were 5 of us, we spent 4 days, and we took everything down, took it all apart, wrapped it up, packed it in 4 days.
How do you get it out of there? Because the roads in Yunnan are not like great. I'm assuming that this was not right off the highway. For those,
You know, there is a movie done by a wonderful filmmaker. It's his first film, Peng Yong, and is a film on our website about taking the house down. And yeah, you can really see that it was a hairy thing. And the guy, the truck driver was from Tianjin. So he drove down this road, and the whole time he had this phone out because he's like, "Hey, you guys at home,
look at this.
Look where I am. This is nuts."
The roads, by the way, for when I was last there in Yunnan this last summer, we went and did tours of all the different tea mountains. And my entire time in Yunnan was on these little windy roads. And my friend had rented this big Lincoln Navigator. It was like a boat of a car. And every time we took a turn, I was like, this is how I die. Yeah. And then we came out and we're like, oh, we survived that blind turn. And then 30 seconds later, we had another blind turn. I'm like, this is how I die. And it was like that for 8 hours in a row.
Yeah.
You go to these really out of the way places. So you, like, there's long pieces of timber here. Like, you can disassemble some stuff, but looking at even just the main beam posts, these must have been a real hell to get out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of work, but rendo li liang da.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of people, and Mr. Zhang jumped in and helped, and we loaded it up. It all fit packed onto that one truck, and we got it out of there. But there's watch the movie.
Yeah, we'll watch it. We'll maybe
watch
cut
it
in
crossing
some
the
clips
bridge
if
at
they
the
let
end,
us.
and you'll see what I'm
sure
talking
it was.
about.
What did the locals think of you taking a house?
Well, of course, it was. We're talking about relocation. Relocation is always sensitive. This Mr. Zhang was the first person to agree to relocate, and his son worked for the Shangri-La Public Security Bureau, so he wanted to do what was being asked of him and sort of be a model of that. But of course, not everybody wants to go. So, in a way, what we were doing was consistent with what the overall goal was, which is that community was going to have to move up closer to the center of town and leave their fields. In another way, we ran into some trouble because it's a 保护区. It's a protected area around Shangri-La. It is an environmental protection zone, so they have a moratorium on shipping wood out of there. So that's for lumbering.
But that would catch you too, because they don't expect, the Yunnan to West Virginia pipeline.
They did not.
Not sufficiently large that there's a addendum for it.
But there was some persuasion and 讲道理 with the local authorities,
well,
and
ultimately
they
you
went
weren't
with it.
logging anything new. You were
That's
going
right.
to be taking stuff that would have been destroyed anyway.
That's right.
So in the end of the day, logic won out.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is. We say it as if it was a fait accompli, but it's not always true that the logic is going to play out.
Well, the funny thing is when people watch the film, if you're Chinese, you have one reaction. If you're sort of American, you have another reaction. Americans all see it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, how'd you get that truck out of there?"
Yeah.
And the Chinese see it and they go, "Oh my gosh, how'd you get those permits?"
I thought it was really funny when I asked you earlier. I didn't comment at the time where I was like, was it hard moving it out? And like, well, Mr. Zhang immediately started worrying about the permits. And I was back in the American camp about like log big, log angle hard on small road. Like I was thinking about physically, but it's really a double. I really feel like, this is for people like me that are trying to do the cultural exchange with China, it's always a double challenge. Yeah. There's always 2 challenges involved. And one challenge is actually finding a way to sit down and have tea. And the other challenge is figuring out like, how do we get the papers? Because especially if you're going back and forth across borders, like the borders are getting harder to get across in all directions. And so it's all the more reason to celebrate the successes when we have them.
Yes,
so
when people to people it works, it's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So so you got the stuff off of the all disassembled. You got it onto the roads.
Yep.
And then I'm guessing now now my tea shipper guy is coming into me. I'm guessing you used boat shipping and you did not send this by air.
That's right. Actually, the guys who did the shipping,
Yeah.
really talented guys, because they were used to doing furniture. They did sort of Chinese antique furniture.
Oh, so it's good
so
people
they
to have.
fumigated every piece of wood, right, to make sure, because you don't want to bring insects in.
Yep.
Emerald ash borer.
Yep.
And they packed everything beautifully. So those carved doors back there that are so gorgeous, they were
they're
wrapped in
perfect.
cardboard and everything. And they took a picture of it before they sent it. They had it from front to back, from bottom to top, just no airspace, just
Wow.
completely packed. And they took a picture because they were so proud of the
Real
job. they did.
professional.
Yeah.
It's actually like one of the challenges of tea stuff. It's like one of the reasons tea stuff is so hard is that it's fragile. And it's bulky, it's fragile, and if you mess up one piece, you kind of need to replace the whole set in many cases. And so it's one of the things that makes it hard to get these, certain types of things around the world. Like, it's one thing for like a USB cable to be shipped from China.
Right.
It's another thing if you're trying to ship something fragile. It's another thing if it's old and fragile, because you can't just make another one.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like, I wonder, one day we're going to find somebody who does Chinese antiques, and we'll have them on here, and I'd love to hear how they did that. But it sounds like they couldn't have found anyone better than the people that you used.
They were perfect.
Yeah.
They were perfect. And that was the smoothest part of all, was the shipping. And then we unloaded it at a mini storage place in Winchester, Virginia. You should have seen the looks people gave us.
Yeah, they're like, who are these people?
What is that? What are you putting
They're
in
like,
that unit?
it's not our business to ask what people put in their storage sheds, but did you take a village? Like what?
Yeah, we had a lot of folks come out. Some of my former students, local people, everybody came out and
That's great.
unloaded the truck. But
Very cool.
yeah.
So it came to the port in Virginia, is that right? Or where did?
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
And then you shipped it from Baltimore on a truck up to here?
Yeah.
And then what is this land that we're on right now? How did you find the land to put it on?
Well, we were going to put it on a place next door that was with Shenandoah University, but it turned out to be a Civil War battlefield, because we are right in right where Virginia and West Virginia come together. Very historic area, very beautiful. We couldn't do it at the university site there, but they told us about this other place where we are now, the Friends Wilderness Center. Well, I teach at Sidwell Friends School. That means it's a Quaker organization. So the house is rebuilt on a Quaker nature preserve that's on the very edge of the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, 1,600 acres, that connects the Appalachian Trail up there with the Shenandoah River. So you know that song, West Virginia, Almost Heaven, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River?
Yep.
That's where we are.
That's where we
and
are.
I bet you took a country road to get here too.
Yeah, we did. The road up here was also a little bit bumpy. It was actually pretty good, but I was thinking if it rained, it would be a little bit difficult to get up here.
Yeah.
But we were able to get all that stuff up here, and then what was going through your head when you had all the trucks maybe unloading the stuff, and then you had a pile of things, and then was there a moment where everybody else kind of went home and you were left with a pile of stuff and an empty piece of land, and you're like, oh, I gotta put this back together now?
There were many times like that, Jesse. I've handled every piece of wood in this at least 3, if not 4 times. There have been moments when I wondered, what was I thinking? But in the end, when I'm alone, I think that. When there's lots of people helping me, I think, by God, we're going to get this thing done.
Yeah.
And it's been great. There have been 350 almost students who've come out over 5 years and volunteered. I think we counted it up, Pam, what is it, 21,000 hours of volunteer labor?
Wow.
21,000 hours of volunteer labor. And that's local people, that's high school students, and they love it. And they come back, some of them, year after year, because they say, I'm part of this.
Yeah.
I can show you the wall that I built. I can show you where I plastered. I can show you the rock work that I put in, and I'm proud of that. Wow. And we're grateful for all that. So I think the most satisfying thing is the kind of community that's come together around rebuilding the house. People are so nice, And when they see you got a good thing going, they're like,
People
well, I'm
like
going to help you.
help on that.
Yeah.
I think that is also the other thing about that sort of commitment and taking the first step is once people see you're committed, they know that, okay, if I don't help, it's actually not going to happen. It may not, if you don't commit, it may never happen. You don't kind of like, well, I don't help, I do help, whatever. But once somebody's like kind of, already pushing the car out of a rut, they're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll go and help you push it out. I see you're already trying to push your own car out.
Yeah, no, people respond. I mean, it's just like in the old days. I remember we used to drive along a country road and you'd see guys getting hay in, bales of hay, and you could see a thunderstorm coming up. What do? You pull off the side of the road and you jump in there and you help them get the hay up on the wagon. That was just what you did. And that kind of like responding to someone on that sort of level, this person needs help, I'm going to help them out. That's what's built this place. So I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
I think I told you already that the actual raising of the timbers of the house, I was supposed to get guys from Gentran, the original carpenters. They were supposed to come over. They didn't get a visa to come over, so we were kind of stuck.
So you tried to help them get the visas and it didn't come through.
Didn't come through. And so we were stuck. How were we going to do it? We didn't have guys from China to help us rebuild.
Because when I saw this, I thought, well, they must have gotten the original people to put it together because that's not easy to do.
Yeah, we
you
wanted
need real skill in order
That's
to
right.
put it together, but you didn't have them.
We didn't have them. And so what could we do? Well, it turned out that these guys from the local Timber Framers Guild, West Virginia Timber Framers Guild, they came out and for 2 weeks they volunteered.
Wow.
And they raised the house. And the whole time they were thanking me for bringing them such a fun puzzle. This is so cool. Thank you so much for bringing this.
It must have been just right at what a puzzle is a good word for it because it wasn't like you had those IKEA instructions.
No
Like
instructions.
with a 1 and a 2 and then it also were they what did they think of the technique of the thing because it was built using it's not like Western framing technique, right?
That's right. Yeah, they could tell that post A went into beam B. They were marked, but they put them together and they were like, how does this fit? And then they figured out, it was really interesting, they figured out you had to come in at an angle and then you would slip it in and that interior dovetail made it fit. They'd never seen anything like that. So it's exactly what they do, timber framing, mortise and tenon, but a completely different method of doing the same thing. So that's why they thought it was so cool.
That's really cool. It's almost like we don't have any alien contact or anything like that. But I guess this is sort of the closest you might get to that. If you were a timber framer and you found an alien civilization with another timber framing technique, the problems are the same. The wood is similar, but it's a different way of going about it.
Yeah.
Do you think? And so the whole thing is built without nails. Is that
The whole
right?
thing is built without nails. It was built without electricity, so it's all hand hewn, hand sawed, hand carved, and of course it's not old. It was built in 1989, but that was before they had electricity out in this part of Yunnan.
Yunnan is really like the Laobanzhang, the village that I went to where we get this tea from. Laobanzhang, they got electricity in 1992. It's out there.
Yeah.
So the building was built without electricity. Are you planning on putting electricity in? Do you know how you might do that?
Yeah. So of course, as soon as they got electricity, they put it in.
Yeah.
So we're going to put electricity in, but one of the themes that we want to explore here is sustainability, because these traditional architectural techniques, mass timber, rammed earth, the situation of the house according to feng shui, where it's zuo bei chao nan, and I can show you the line of where the sun hits, where it's shaded in the summer and the sun goes into the house in the winter. All of these older techniques are really a kind of traditional sustainability. So we want to keep with that theme and use solar power, put solar panels in the back, not on the top, but in the back, and then run solar lights so that we can develop the house as like a museum of everyday life, so that you can see the furniture and the tools, and each room will be like a chapter with ethnicity and kinship and religion in the house and the architecture of the house, so that people can come and visit and they can stay out here, so they can kind of live here. We want it to be a living museum, But we also wanted to have that really strong sustainability theme.
Can you get enough power from solar panels to power something like that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. The lighting should not be a problem.
Okay.
So
That's really cool.
yeah.
So there's many stories that I still want to talk about the house, but we're going to take a little bit of a quick break, get to the finishing of putting up the house, and then talk a little bit about the types of ethnicities and cultures that kind of built the area that we're sitting in, because I remember that was one of the coolest things I thought of just from being in this courtyard. You were able to show some of those details.
Cool.
We'll get right to that in just a moment. I'm Jesse.
I'm John.
And we'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's Jesse. Hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. I'm recording this now back in LA after my trip to the Folk House. I had a lot of fun over in West Virginia. If you are interested in trying some of the tea that we're drinking in the video or anything on the site, if you use the code FOLKHOUSE, you can get 10% off. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so we're going to head right back to the interview and hear more about John and the amazing story of this place. I really like it. If you have a chance to go visit it and you're in the West Virginia area, you really should. All right, back to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tea Time with Jesse. I'm Jesse here with John Flower, and we are at, again, the China Folk House in West Virginia, Harper's Ferry.
Yep.
Right? And out in the middle of the woods with this house that has been reconstructed, brought piece by piece by John and his team, and 21,000 hours of local volunteer help in order to create the beautiful courtyard that we're sitting in here and enjoying this amazing tea under a blue sky. Doesn't get better. Does not get better. And today, for the second half of the show, we're going to be having this red tea. This is the ancient tree red tea, and this, I was saying, is from my last trip back to Yunnan. Sister Ai Jie, who is, funnily enough, is the same Ai as my name. I'm Ai Jie, she's Ai Jie. Same Ai, so we call it the Shuang Ai Zhi Yuan, the fate of the two eyes. We came together and made this, we made a master box selection actually last summer where we had 4 different teas, a red tea, a raw pu'er, a cooked pu'er, and also a cha gao, like a tea resin, if you've ever seen that. And it was such a success, but people told us that they were a little too expensive for some people, which they can get expensive. So this is the Sister Ai's everyday red tea.
Every day.
And so this is from, instead of a 1,000-year-old tree, this is from a 200-year-old tree. So still pretty old. So we did this, and these are part of the tea subscription club that we run. Cool. So we got a lot of people who are trying these. I'm interested to see what you think of it. So while we drink this tea, we're going to keep going over the story of this this amazing house. So you, to make it very simple, you took it down, you moved it around the entire world, you got it here, you put it up. And what is it though? So what is the house? What made you think that this is a house that we want to put all this effort in to move? What are the different elements that really spoke out to you about it?
Yeah, that's important because what the house is central to why. Why did we move it? Well, it's because it reflects its place. And the place is Zhezhong, this incredibly diverse, amazing community in northwest Yunnan, where it has not only tremendous ecological diversity, where the farmers there, they put yaks on the high grassland, but they also have rice paddy, so, and everything in between. But it's an incredibly diverse place in terms of ethnicity as well. So the house, we felt, conveyed the story of the place.
Smell that.
Oh man.
Very nice.
That is
that ancient
awesome.
tree. Got the ancient tree feeling to it.
That is deep roots right there.
Especially for people that spend time in Yunnan, I always love it just being able to get that to you. So continue. You were saying here we can drink the wash. Cheers. Yeah. It'll get darker as we go on. You guys can enjoy yours as well. We have an audience here as well, in case, live audience watching the podcast. I made them a big pot of tea they're passing around, so you guys enjoy that. But so you're in Sidwell, and you got yaks, you got rice.
Yeah, and
you got a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, because the people who live there in Zhezhong are Zhangzu. They're Tibetan. So picture Tibetan people living at the same latitude as Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but at 11,000 feet. And this is one of these places in Yunnan where you have lots of different ethnicities mixing. So the town has Tibetan people, the old Tusi back in the days of before the revolution, the headman was a Nashi, ethnically Nashi, and the carpenters who built the house were Bai from Zhenchuan, Baizu.
So for people who are watching that maybe are not China scholars, a lot of times you think of Chinese people, you're thinking of Han Chinese.
Right.
But there are actually different ethnic groups inside of China.
Yeah.
And especially is one of the fun of going to Yunnan I find the closer you get to the borders, generally the more of them there are.
That's right.
And so this is way up in the so this is on the Tibetan plateau, but not in the province or in the not in the province of Tibet.
That's right. It's
Okay.
it's in northwest Yunnan, up in that border, right between Burma. So if you go over one mountain range, you're in Burma, Sichuan.
So it's right on the border.
Right on the border.
Oh wow.
And you know there are 26 different minority nationalities in Yunnan, and there's 8 of them in Suzhou.
Wow.
And the house kind of reflects that.
Do the people live together well?
Yeah,
do?
they each occupy a certain ecological niche, but those all come together in these places with really tall mountains, really deep river valleys, and
Look
so
at that
look at that color.
Nice.
Yeah, so the people were Tibetan who owned the house. Mr. Zhang was Tibetan. The carpenters were ethnically Bai. The house design with the deep upper porch and everything was Nashi. And then Mr. Zhang really liked the Han style of courtyard, so he made sure that the kitchen building would be off to the side. So we have a kitchen there, and we have a courtyard that we're sitting in right now. So it's got Tibetan, Nashi, Bai, Han, and it reflects all that. But the most interesting thing about Sejong was, I always show people, if you look up at the very top, I don't know if you can see it,
We'll
but
cut in a shot of it.
yeah, there's a cross at the very center top of the house because they were Catholic. There were French missionaries who came up the Mekong River in the 1860s and built a church in Sejong.
Wow.
And so the people who lived there, about 80% of them are Catholic.
Is the church still there?
The church is still there.
Really?
It's very much the center of the community.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
And
What
they
did
have-
that building look like?
It was built by Bai carpenters, and it was a kind of combination of Italianate architecture and Bai architecture. So it's a really cool hybrid.
Do you have a picture of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
We'll put in the picture of it so you can see what I'm interested to see what it looks like. But it's definitely one of those. I think people get this idea that when you have all these different cultures together, I think people might look at this building and without the knowledge, they're just like, oh, it's somewhat Asian. I don't really know, and that's really one of the things that I liked about living in China was like the more you learn about the things, you start seeing stuff you like literally didn't see before.
Yeah.
Even the cross. Like I was here before and I was looking around this house and I see the birds and I see the dragons up at the top and I see the calligraphy. I might not have even noticed the cross, and it's clearly a cross.
Yeah.
And so all of this kind of comes together to create this this house. But you were saying that the local people were confused about like why this house is just a farmer's house.
Yeah, yeah. But the reason that we got the house is not because it's anything special. It's precisely because it's not special. It's just an everyday house. And it's really well built, and it's got beautiful carving in it. But it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's the very ordinariness of it that I think makes it really interesting, because it's a reflection of their lives. It's like a text of everyday life, and that was really the idea behind bringing the house, that you could bring all the complexity of that community that has all these different ethnic groups and all these different religious influences and this tremendously fascinating history, where it was really a kind of center, a crossroads. Not just locally, but I mean, there were global forces, missionaries, and there was an American pilot who recuperated here during the Second World War. Lots and lots of different stories.
What made it such a nexus? Because I think a lot of times you think like, oh, that's way out there.
Well, Sejong's placement, it's on the Mekong River, but there's also a pass that goes behind Sejong over to the Salween River, the Nujiang. So it's kind of a crossroads there, coming off of the plateau. And that's also what made it such a ethnic mixing pot too, right? So geography, history, ethnicity, ecological diversity, all those things are kind of inscribed in the house.
Do you have any idea why the missionaries that went to put up the church in the first place chose Sejong?
Yeah, well, they chose it because it was where the Nashi the Tusa, the chieftain, that was his job, was to hold that position against raids from the north or raids from the west. So the missionaries, when they came, they recognized that it was a really key strategic point. And they were proselytizing and trying to convert, particularly Tibetans and Lisu people. So a lot of Lisu people, right, are Catholic. And it was just a strategy that they had in the 19th century.
Wow. So all of these different groups living together, what does that look like now in the modern day? Because you said you've led trips there, you have high schoolers there.
Yeah.
What do your students make of them when they go, and what do they make of your students?
Let's say this is a pretty cosmopolitan place, because you got to figure that they've had experience with Westerners for hundreds of years.
Yep.
So they kind of are used to people coming and visiting the church. Now, of course, we were there for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So by the time I took the kids up to Sejong, they had seen quite a bit. But they were sensitized to looking for different symbols and codes, and how you can look at a house and you can see, like, you can tell if it's a Nashi house or if it's a Bai house or if it's a Tibetan house. You know, they could read that by then. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's definitely cool. What about the architecture of the actual house itself shows you how the people lived in it? Like, are there specific rooms for specific things?
Yeah, so in the central room is the kuting. It's the guest room, and it's where the family would host people from outside. They have a big chagam, like a cupboard in the back that has all these pots. That's their signal to the community that they can have a feast, and everyone would be invited. And then you have different rooms, like underneath the stairs is cool and dark, so there's all these kind of eco zones in the house, right? And they used that room for agriculture. They stored their grain there. They made their wine in there. They had different kind of tools and things that they stored in that cool, dry place.
It's funny because it was made, as you said, before electricity, even though it was built in the 80s, you said? 89?
89.
A lot of times people, they lived here during 1989, so they're like, oh, I know what 1989 was like. But in there, it's a completely different thing. And in many ways, it's, even though the house is new, it really shows how effective that architecture and the local style of building things was at living well.
Yeah.
Because if they hadn't, they by that time they would have had thousands of years of living in these areas. If they hadn't figured out a way to deal with keeping their food cool during the summer, they wouldn't have been living there.
Yeah, exactly. And what you say is precisely the kind of the point of village engineering, is to how do you live in harmony with the local landscape, the local conditions. So, for example, the joinery in the house.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any diagonals. It's double mortise. There's a kind of a dovetail inside the joint, and that is built that way so that it can withstand earthquakes. It can shake, and it has enough flexibility so that it won't break apart during an earthquake, but it has enough solidity so that it'll hold the structure together.
Wow.
So it's built for that particular location.
So even during those times, they knew that, like, okay, eventually we're going to get an earthquake. We'd rather not have the whole thing fall down.
Yeah.
They were planning for that with the architecture.
Yep.
Do you feel like that this sort of, like, with the addition now of electricity, and it's like, oh, you can just throw an air conditioner in there. Do you think that that's leading to a lower quality of life in some ways? Because obviously you don't want to be sweltering in the worst of the heat, but when you can kind of just whatever, it's like, do you feel like you wind up losing some of that knowledge?
Yeah. Look, you can talk to old timers, and they will tell you that the rammed earth curtain walls and the way that the house is designed, with the rooms all opening out onto a common balcony.
Yeah.
That it's cool in summer and it's warm in winter. Yeah. And you can see that with the sun angle too, right? It's built so that there's a lot of shade in the summertime, but the long slanting rays of the sun will go in and warm you in the winter. So they didn't need air conditioning or heating. They would have it accommodate the local climate conditions. Now, I think we could learn a lot from that. And it's sad now because people move out of their traditional homes into concrete block homes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel like they're not comfortable.
I had a friend who was a comedian actually in China who came from one of the villages in Shanxi where they lived in the cave homes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Yaodong, they would drill caves into the loess soil and they would live in the cave homes. And then recently the government came and they moved the entire village into one high-rise village, one high-rise building. So now all 300 people in the old village live in one high-rise building. And I went there for Chinese New Year. So I spent a couple days in the high-rise that was Goldicun. And I asked people about it and they said, in some ways, yes, it is nicer. The water flows better. You don't need to go to a, you know, if it got really cold, you can turn up the heat. But on the other hand, it doesn't feel like I'm living in a village anymore. It feels like I live on a hallway with some other people.
Yeah.
And there was something about having not just more of your own space, but the interaction between the different pieces of the architecture that made it feel like an actual community as opposed to a way to house the maximum number of people.
Right. And old houses were, I mean, they were intricately linked with agriculture.
Yeah.
I mean, the house was an agricultural machine. So everything from the courtyard here to the place where you store the grain, to the space up in the roof where they would put grass and grains to dry.
Yeah, in the tea villages that we were just in, like in the same villages, you would see a lot of people, the roofs of their house are like, they had a top floor which was kind of the roof, but kind of not anywhere you'd stand for a long period of time. But they would have rushes laid out, and they would be drying the tea leaves out in the front, and it was like, everybody, you got to have one. You know, it's almost like they built the whole house around. Well, we need a place to do the agriculture anyway. We might as well live as close to it as possible. It's almost like it's the opposite. Rather than having the stuff around the home, it was that we had to have that agriculture going on anyway, and we might as well live near it.
Yeah. Well, it was an integrated life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that's being lost.
What about the locals here in West Virginia? Because you had said that you had some people from the timber guild come over, and there are even other places in the back that you had said have been built with local wood, but with the traditional joinery.
Yeah.
What are the locals here in West Virginia thinking about this house?
Well, I mean, they like it because the Timber Framers Guild guys, they like it because it's what they do, but a different method, like we talked about before. So they actually learned that particular kind of joinery with the double mortise, and they said, okay, we can design a bunkhouse using that Chinese method, but we'll use West Virginia oak and our own guys, and they actually taught our students last summer as apprentices. So students built 2 of our 3 bunkhouses back there.
That's great.
But it's a unique building. It's like local timber, local craftsmen, but a Chinese design.
Wow.
So I think, you know, they're learning.
Yeah.
And they like to do, I mean, nobody wants to do the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
Right? You want to learn different things, you want to try different things. And so that's the great kind of cross-fertilization that we've been able to do here, which has been wonderful.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
another example is we had Chao Tian come.
Mm-hmm.
She's an incredible yangqin player, and she's up here playing with bluegrass guys and,
that's fun.
Irish
The
guitar
other thing,
player.
the
It's
courtyard
awesome.
might have originally been for agriculture, but you can do a show here.
Heck yeah.
Yeah,
you can do a
put on
square
show.
dance too.
Yeah. You got everything you need. It's and so what was that like, having the sort of the bluegrass and yangqin together?
It's great.
Yangqin's like a hammered dulcimer for people who don't know. It's a great instrument.
They played Chinese tunes. They played bluegrass tunes, Irish tunes, all on those instruments. It's just the same thing. It's different voices, right? But they can all learn each other's language, right? So this is the language of wood, and there are different idioms of it, but it's still communication, you know. And it was the same thing with music. So that's the kind of thing we really hope. You know, we saved the house, right?
Yeah.
What can it grow into? And a place for that kind of cross-cultural, you know, exchange and cross-fertilization of ideas. We would love for this place to become that.
And that's the hard part, like especially now doing the tea, more and more I realize that it's not literally a challenge of getting a better tea leaf into somebody's cup, because once you try the tea, very quickly you're like, oh, this is better than Lipton. But not to drag any particular brand, we might have to. But like that's not the hard part. The hard part is about saying, what about all the stuff around it? Because, like, you know, I like tea, but the thing that gets me excited about sharing the culture is not literally the stuff going in my mouth. It's all of the other things. The idea that, like, you know, this is my idea of a great afternoon. Come out in the nature, somebody who's done something really interesting with the Chinese culture, mixing it with the American culture, sitting down, having tea, like, this is great. I'm having a great time. and that sort of thing is so much more than literally like which leaf is better than the other leaf, because to some degree even that's a personal taste. But all the stuff around it is hard to get across. Were you worried that you would move the building and then it would just be a building somewhere and you wouldn't be able to get the rest of it there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, that was some of the most perceptive questions that were asked us by different folks was, okay, you moved the house, but a house only has its meaning within a context, right? So you really need, as one guy put it, it takes a village, right, to make the house. And I said, I think that's right. But in this case, it took a house to make a village, because we have so many people who came out. So in a way, it's not exactly the same thing. It's never going to be the same thing. But it is kind of the same thing when you think about how a house works to bring people together, right? So that's what's happened here.
It's almost like a Lucian, like, you know, the earth used to have no roads, and then when many people walk one way, the road is formed.
Made. Yeah, road is made.
The coming together of the people, was this something that you directed, or did you feel like it was directing you?
Oh, we were riding it for sure. Yeah. I mean, from the time when the timber framers came out, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And here they came, pickup trucks and vans all rolling in. I did not know that was going to happen. So even here today, how many people did we have here today?
Yeah.
We had 5 tables of noodles.
Yeah. Very good noodles, by the way. Cut to the noodles.
Yeah, right.
We have noodle footage.
So spontaneity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this has taken a lot of planning. I'm not gonna lie.
No.
It's been a lot, but it's the spontaneity, the serendipity, the 巧合, the 缘分, all that stuff, that's really made it happen and made it really satisfying. So.
What do you think the next step is then for the house? Because you got the house up. Are you completely finished with the house, or
okay,
not yet?
One big challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, one big challenge, and here's something for your listeners.
Yeah.
The people in Yunnan heard that we were doing this, and they responded so warmly, and they sent us a lot of stuff about Yunnan architecture, an exhibition that we have now at the house. But the other thing they sent us was 14,860 roof tiles. I have to find out how to put up 14,860 roof tiles. I don't know how to do that, but but when you come and visit the house, you'll see that it's all very authentic. It's all the original materials except the roof. So the roof is the last thing, and it's a big challenge. It's literally topping the whole thing off. So that's what that's my next big goal, to learn how to do it, and then to actually have the labor to do it. And I'm confident that we'll get the labor, but how do we do it? Yeah, the knowledge.
Is it a specific type of roofing knowledge you're looking for? Does it have to be like, oh, if you're like a regular roofer, you'll have no idea how to do this, or is it like, oh no, it's tile, essentially?
It's tile, but it's specifically a Yunnan traditional roof tile that's laid out on pole rafters. I think I have an idea, but there's some aspects of it that I need to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to go back this summer and try to learn something. And then, I mean, I got a quote for a professional roofing company to come in and do it.
Yeah.
$98,000. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But I have a lot of, it will take money, but it will also take a lot of labor and expertise. Yeah. So it's the expertise that we're kind of searching.
So I was saying we have a very widely distributed audience. So if you know anything about traditional Chinese roofing, which it sounds silly, but you never know who's out there, or if you have a friend who does that, let us know. You can private message me, or you can message the China Folk Team House. I think that China Folk House Team, and potentially even once you figure it out, you might need help with if you can find labor, if you need volunteers or whatever. There's always ways, I'm sure, of continuing to be part of the project.
Yeah.
So it's it is one of those things where it's almost like the building of the house created that second village, And hopefully you have open door to the village. Like the village is not closed, right?
Oh, it's an open door. Y'all
Open
come.
door. Very,
Y'all
very
come.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really nice to be able to talk to you about the making of the house. I wanted to finish off with a couple lightning round questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask a question, and I'd say one sentence answer. Try not to go further than that. We'll see if we get it. Okay.
I'll do my best.
All right. What was the hardest part about moving the house?
The hardest part about moving the house.
There's a lot of hard stuff.
You got me once. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try this again.
What was the hardest part about moving the house?
Marking everything and making it so we would not mess it up when we rebuilt it.
Oh, I'll take a moment to do a little aside on that, though. How did you do that?
More than one sentence?
Yeah, you can have more than one sentence. How did you make sure that you put it back together in the right way?
We marked every single piece of wood and made maps and diagrams. Marty Fair led that effort, and that was crucial. But that was the hardest part.
Wow, very cool. What was the most fun part about moving the house?
Loading it up on the truck.
Yeah, that was good.
That was good.
What was the part where you felt most like this is not going to happen?
When we were waiting for permits.
Oh, it's the worst.
Sat around waiting.
You'd much rather like move piles of stuff back and forth aimlessly than wait for permits.
Under my control.
Yeah, exactly.
Not my control.
What was the part where you really felt like we did it?
When we had kids come out that first year.
Yeah,
I felt like that made it happen.
that did it.
Mm-hmm.
What is for somebody that wants to get into learning about architecture in other countries, how do you do that?
Well, I think you look at it from the craftsman perspective, right? Not just the designer, but actually the craftsman. How do they do it?
How do you convince traditional craftspeople to tell you what they do?
You watch them. They don't explain. They say, I do, you watch.
Very good. And then last thing for somebody who's just interested in learning Chinese, what's the best way to start learning Chinese?
Go out, make a lot of mistakes. Take a notebook, write everything down.
Very good. I like it. That was good answers. You scared me with the first one, not being able to come back with it. The rest
I froze.
of them were really good.
I'm a teacher. One
That's
sentence.
really
Come
good.
on.
But and then also before we head out, I want to ask, what do you think of the tea? What did you like about this tea?
Oh, I love this tea. This is smoky. This has depth. Yeah, it's delicious.
The ancient tree red tea has this sort of like, I don't know exactly what it is. It's almost like, I called it a funk. I don't know if that's really what it is.
Oh yeah, the funk.
It's got like a depth of it to it in the middle of the taste that just stays in the aftertaste. A lot of the people they talk about, like people talk about tea, they talk about the taste. A lot of the tea people, they talk about the huigan, the aftertaste. It's sort of like what comes back, like sort of this sweet. In this case, it's almost a little dry mouth, like a little dry flavor, but not bitter at all.
Not bitter, very sweet. Yeah.
And even I bet the pot that's been sitting there steeping for whatever 40 minutes, I bet that's not bitter either. So that's so it's very good. I'm very, very glad to have been here. I'm glad to have been able to make the trip. This was about an hour or something ride from DC.
Yeah, we're 90 minutes from DC, and I encourage folks to come out. And actually, I encourage people to sign up on our website, and we can get updates on the project. We have cool events happening.
Yep.
We're at chinafolkhouse.org. You can click on the Get Involved button. We love to send people out information about what we're doing, and of course, we love donations. But if you can donate your labor, that's great. If you can donate money, we sure do need it.
Yeah,
so,
we have a lot of friends. There we go, China Folk House donations. Thank you very much. It really is. It's a great project, and I think I'll just say on my side, it's normally when I go to DC, I hear a lot of downer stories about U.S.-China. It's like DC is not the place to go if you want to hear good news about the way that the U.S. and China are working together. And this is like literally a refreshing breath of fresh air, is to kind of get out of the swamp a little bit. And then when you realize like this is with the tea, it's with the comedy, it's with all these things. When you can get the people working together, you can do amazing things. And the exact value of which is never exactly clear in any given moment. But would I rather live in a world where we're sitting out in a courtyard under a blue sky, drinking amazing tea next to a great house with fun people? or just be fighting, you know. And this is kind of more of, I'd rather more things look like this. So I really I'm very glad and thankful to have seen the effort that you put in here. And you know, it's definitely after my own heart in the way of going about doing the China stuff.
Thank you for helping us tell the story,
I
Jesse.
appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate it.
Thank you. So we're gonna see you guys later. Again, thank you for everybody. If you do not know Jesse's Tea House, my website, we support the site by getting you guys really great tea. All of the teas that we drunk and the tea equipment is available on the website, jessesteahouse.com. And thank you so much, John, for your time and attention. Thank you to everybody in the audience. You can clap. Go ahead. We got the people like, oh, no. Go ahead and clap. Thank you all. I'll see you guys next time. I'm Jesse.
I'm John.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.